So, it was revealed recently that the Democrats want their own Joe Rogan, i.e., someone with a very large audience who is able to drum up excitement for their party and their candidates. And this is somewhat reminiscent of what I want them to do. I think right after the election, I made a video called "The Democrats Need a Better Media Apparatus." And in that video, I argued that the Democrats can't just rely on CNN or MSNBC to get their message out anymore. Older libs who are still watching those channels are a demographic they already have locked down, but clearly that demographic alone is not enough to carry them in a national election, just like Trump's hardcore cultists alone can't carry him in an election. And Trump and his campaign understood that. That's why you didn't only see Trump going on Fox News and exclusively appealing to the boomer conservative demographic that he already has locked down, but on the campaign trail he also talked to people like Aiden Ross and Joe Rogan, online figures who tap into an audience that doesn't typically watch mainstream news networks. But okay, the Democrats finally realize that they need to embrace the online sphere more. What is their solution? Throwing money in an effort to concoct online influencers that would likely be mouthpieces for the party. They also want to etch their way into traditionally apolitical spaces like sports or lifestyle podcasts. Kinda like how gaming spaces and like what was just mentioned, sports communities here online are infiltrated by right-wing politics. But here's the thing, you can't resonate with people online and organically drum up interest for your party when your message doesn't resonate with most people in this country. The Democratic Party's messaging is, we want to uphold status quo, we're not chaotic like Donald Trump. But the problem with that is, by and large, the American public is not satisfied with the status quo, and many of them are facing economic turmoil. Prices and bills go up while wages remain the same, and Trump has been able to tap into this frustration. Now, Trump is obviously still doing the bidding of billionaires and the 1%, I mean, quite a few of them are in his fucking cabinet, but Trump is able to invoke populist messaging and tap into people's frustration with what is ultimately capitalism, but is able to divert their anger towards immigrants, people of color, LGBT people. It's the classic top echelon of society pitting the working class against each other, instead of realizing it's that top echelon that's the problem trick. Trump's brand of populism is not a threat to capital, and so there is a concerted effort between billionaires to fund for further propagandizing of right-wing talking points online. The right's stronghold on online discourse is not entirely organic either, but the fundamental difference between the right's dominance on the internet and what the Democrats wish to achieve is that there was initially organic interest in Trump and his platform, and there still is enough organic interest in Trump that people with deep enough pockets can take advantage of this interest, throw money at people who will be more than happy to be paid propagandists to help spread pro-Trump and right-wing sentiment and talking points that align with the interests of those who are funding them, in an effort to not only tap into the already popular demand for this type of content, but to also potentially reach the eyes and ears of people who could be swayed by this type of content. Meanwhile, where is the organic interest in the Democratic Party? You can try to have your pro-Dem establishment influencers and podcasters, but your attempt to resonate with the younger generation is only going to fall flat on its face because your party does not have a distinct, cogent message. Trying to be Republican light failed in the 2024 election because that does not resonate with your constituents, and Republican voters are just going to fucking vote Republican. Cheerleaders for a party that refuses to shed itself of geriatrics whose politics are stuck 30 years in the past, at least, are not going to resonate with the younger demographic. What, do you think they're going to be swayed by some young 20-something making a series of TikToks proclaiming that Chuck Schumer is so awesome? There are already plenty of large left-wing content creators here online you could finally embrace and heed the words of: Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk, Sam Cedar of Majority Report, Mike Figueredo of the Humanist Report, Hassan, just to name a few off the top of my head. And there are even people within your own fucking party who resonate with younger voters and are actually popular. AOC, for example. But what is the similarity of all of these people? They are critical of the geriatrics who head your party and appease the donors. And finally, appealing to your constituents would also have to include admitting the failure of allowing these old fucks who should have gone to the retirement home ages ago to head your party for as long as they have, and finally finally have them step aside for a new crop of young, progressive politicians to take their place. But this party is captured by its rich donors who naturally aren't very receptive to talking points and ideas, like taxing the rich higher, eliminating student debt, Medicare for all, things that would actually resonate and improve the quality of life of the demographic you are trying to appeal to. Your constituents don't want you to use memes more and have your own line of influencers and podcasters. They want you to finally fucking listen to them and represent their interests as opposed to representing the interests of rich donors. There is no need for this disingenuous attempt to relate and appeal to the younger generation. And I'm telling you right now, the internet would not be very receptive to a liberal Joe Rogan who is so obviously paid off by the Dem establishment and is nothing more than a cheerleader for the Dem establishment and will never point out any of the many problems that are plaguing this party. Joe Rogan's podcast didn't start off as a right-wing propaganda mill. He was a moderate, left-leaning dude until one day he saw which side of the aisle most of the money was on, and then he decided to hop on board the right-wing propaganda hype train. The initial appeal of his podcast was dumb guy has a casual conversation with and asks questions to interesting and intelligent people, and that was what initially drew people to his podcast. It wasn't a GOP creation from the jump. So how do you expect interest to organically drum up for a podcast hosted by some hack paid off by a major political party to be a hype man for said party? It's not going to work. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.